This is a podcast about both having autism and living with someone who has autism. My mom is Sonya, and I'm Josh, and this is Josh Has Autism.
Hey everybody, welcome to Josh Has Autism.
Hello.
I'm so happy you're hanging out with us again.
Yeah, I for one am happy that we're here again too.
I know, right? After all that we've been through and missing so many, it's really nice to be back.
Yeah.
Last week we did a podcast about Nana, about losing Nana, and the week before that, actually 2 weeks before that, you had a conversation with her that lasted for quite a while.
Yeah, several hours.
Yeah, and which in itself, you speaking to anybody for several hours is an accomplishment. But I've been getting questions about that conversation and how that went, and people wanting to know how you experienced that. So the question is how you process. I'm going to tell you first, and tell you what I'm asking you first, and then give you an example of what people are asking about.
All right.
And one person in particular put this brilliantly, so I feel like it's really something we should talk about. The question is, on a day-to-day, where do you kind of operate? I'll put it in lanes, like lanes. There's like is it words? Is it feelings? And is it emotions?
Okay.
And because we talk a lot about the words that you are so important to you.
Yeah.
That's one of the things we've talked about that makes me crazy with you. That if I don't use the right words, if I'm not expressing myself very clearly, if I'm not, having the forethought in letting you know through words, then, it kind of things throughout life just kind of, blew up and just wasn't successful, right?
Right. Proper verbiage is very important.
Yes, and also for the information to be timely, for it to be advance notice, all of those things.
Yeah.
And so you have worked through years and years and years and years to understand your own emotions.
Yes.
And it's my impression, please correct me if I'm wrong, but it's my impression that that's something you've gotten very good at, to understand your own emotions. You still have a difficult time understanding other people's emotions.
For the most part, yes. I mean, with my own emotions, I still sometimes come across an emotion that it takes me a while to identify.
Mm-hmm.
And so that can be frustrating to me. And whenever it comes to other people's emotions, though, sometimes based off of my own experience of my emotions, sometimes I'm able to see and explain to myself, at least, what they might be feeling.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it's very difficult for me to identify that in other people.
Mm-hmm.
Especially so if they're using something like sarcasm.
Sure.
Because they could be saying one thing, facially and physically expressing either the same thing or another thing. And they could mean a third thing completely.
Right. Yeah. So there are people that we know and love in our family that deal with anxiety, and it can be debilitating for them.
Yeah.
And I've talked to them, and they, RJ is who I'm talking about, and RJ has explained that he spends an awful lot of time wondering what somebody else is thinking or feeling, and I don't see that from you, where you're really kind of focusing a lot of time on what other people are feeling. Is that true? Like with RJ, it's a constant concern. It sometimes will stop him from really functioning very well. because the concern about what other people are, again, feeling or thinking.
I'm not quite following what you're saying about RJ.
Mm-hmm.
The thing you were saying about lanes.
Mm-hmm.
You said three things. Words.
Emotions and feelings.
Okay. Let's say the fast lane is the one I'm using the most.
Mm-hmm.
Followed by it's a 3-lane road then.
Okay. Yep.
Fast lane, middle lane's the next most important, and the right-hand lane.
Mm-hmm.
For me, words is the fast lane.
Mm-hmm. Right. That's where you operate most of the day.
Yeah.
All interactions, your experiences, it's based on words that are used.
Yeah. To quote, oh jeez. And of course their name flies out of my head. Life in the fast lane, sure to make you lose your mind.
Oh. Yeah. Isn't that Eagles?
Yeah, the Eagles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good song. Yeah.
The middle lane then would be feelings, actually.
Okay.
Like physical things I can feel and touch and
Mm-hmm.
see and everything like that.
Okay.
With emotions, for me it is very, like you said before, it's taken years for me to be able to understand what I'm feeling
Mm-hmm.
emotionally
Mm-hmm.
and put words to them.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And which is funny I put it like that because then the slow lane goes to the middle lane, then the fast lane. But for me to understand what I'm emotionally experiencing,
Mm-hmm.
some of them are a lot easier to identify than others. And like, for example, if I'm content,
Mm-hmm.
granted, I jumped right into what the word was,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
the emotion of being content to me it emotionally feels like I just don't need to do anything else. Everything's okay.
It's okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get what you mean.
And so moving that emotion to the feeling category or lane,
Mm-hmm.
I tend to be relaxed and more easygoing than normal.
Mm-hmm. So you do see the connection in them
Yes.
sometimes,
Yes.
but not always.
Right.
Okay. The conversation that we had last week was regarding your time that you spent with Nana that day. And what you had expressed is that the emotion was the emotion that you had that day, not the words that were shared between the two of you. And I'm so grateful that question was sent to us, because I didn't recognize it.
Right.
You know, because
Right.
I just didn't recognize that was the way that was presented. And I think it's really important that you explain that and how that went, and because what you're talking about now, I know that to be who you are.
Right.
Words are super important.
Right.
So the way that it sounded last week was that it was the emotion that was more significant for you. And that's when people are going, wait, what?
Let me put it in perspective then.
Okay.
Whenever I would get in trouble, no, hear me out.
Okay.
You gave me a look. Just hear me out. Whenever I was younger and I would get into trouble, you and Dad would sit down with me and talk to me about why I did was wrong.
Okay.
I can't think of a specific example of what was said, because most of the time whenever that would happen, after a certain amount of time, it all would blend together to me.
Right.
And while the words are important at that point, because I understood what I did wrong already, it was repetitive to me, and it was not that it actually was repetitive, but the message from you to me seemed repetitive, and I lost the words.
Mm-hmm. That's something that Dad and I learned from you, because we didn't know. We have to make it short and sweet. It's got to be complete, extremely compact, to the point. Let you know how to give you a way to do it different. Why what was done wouldn't really work for you and maybe others, but give you an alternative.
Yeah.
Done.
Yes.
And that's how it has to be.
Yes.
Yeah.
With the reason I bring that up is the correlation between the time that Nana and I were talking.
Okay.
Because so much was said, I don't remember all the exact words that were used. On top of that, I didn't want to think about it at the time, but at the same time, mentally, I was acknowledging that it might be the last conversation I have with her. And the week leading up to that point, even a couple of weeks leading up to that point, she wasn't as verbose as that.
Yes, correct.
And if this... at the time I was thinking to myself, if this was the last time that I could talk to her, I wanted to be able to spend time with her as I knew her growing up.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't necessarily about the words. Yes, the stories were awesome. And I was learning new things about her. Some of the stories I hadn't heard, some of the stories that I had heard, I heard new parts to. And it was very, very much so that I wanted to spend time with her. So
So somehow you had a sense that this time together was important.
Yes. It was more about being connected to her than it was about the words. I know, right?
Yeah. You say, what? Yeah.
Yeah.
You can let her in.
Okay.
Sorry, everybody. The noise. have a household ruled by dogs, and Nellie wants to come in. Well, one of the things that I think it's important that you bring up, that how you that you wanted to spend time with her as she was when you were growing up.
Yeah.
Well, the thing about Nana is that she laughed a lot.
Yeah.
And she made you laugh a lot.
Yeah.
And those times that you would have with her, it could make you feel like you were the most important person in the world. And so I do know that what you're talking about is a feeling of
acceptance.
Yes, exactly. That's the perfect word. And again, her laughing and making you laugh, because the things that she's done, it's I don't know if one of the stories was this, but I'll just share, because these are the kind of stories.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in San Diego, so my whole life grew up a block away from the beach in Pacific Beach, and then lived in San Diego. Well, the Nana went with a couple of friends down to Tijuana, because Tijuana is right there at the border of San Diego, specifically Chula Vista, and anyway. So they went down to Tijuana, right? Which I've done so many times living there. It's just it sounds so foreign, I guess, to people that don't live close to the border. But if you live by the border, you go down to Tijuana. Things, they have little shops. It was, it was just fun. Anyway, they got down there, and their car had a hole in the radiator. Did you know about this story?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll just say it real quick then. But these are the kind of stories that I'm sure she shared with you, so to give everybody kind of the essence of how these conversations went.
Yeah.
So anyway, They went down to Mexico, got a hole in the radiator. 3, young women, mid-30s, I guess, down in Mexico, and couldn't get home, because you can't get home with a hole in your radiator. Nana had an idea. She went into a store and she bought a pack of bubble gum. And everybody chewed the bubble. She goes, chew this, guys, chew this. So everybody has this mouthful of bubble gum. She took that bubble gum and smacked it on the radiator, filled it with water, and they got home with bubble gum holding the water in the radiator. So, those are the kind of things that she would talk to you about.
Yeah, and that actually was one of the stories.
Was it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I understand that what you're saying is, what I think you're saying is that there were so many words that the words run together, and something that you have a hard time picking out something of a conversation and applying that in real time.
Right.
And so it would seem to me that that's what you're talking about, is that went on for so long. To pull out of that long conversation specific words are difficult, but I can bring something up and you remember,
yes.
like what just happened.
Yeah.
But you also remember that how being with her felt that day.
Yeah.
And a sense of there was that time with her was important.
Yeah.
And
the only other synonymous way to explain it, I guess, would be whenever I read a story. Because whenever I read a story, yes, I'm reading the words. But for me, whenever I'm reading nonfiction, I don't always see the words I'm reading. I'm seeing the events happen in my head. So it's not necessarily that I'm focusing on the words, because I am, because I'm actually reading them to make this story happen in my head. Does that make any sense?
Well, what I picture that you just described is almost like you're the narrator. When you're reading, you're the narrator, but you're actually seeing the events unfold, and you can actually kind of experience what that feels like.
Yeah, and honestly, one of the reasons that I'm so well versed in not just words, but also in feelings and emotions, is because of all the stories I've read growing up.
Mm-hmm.
Because of my ability to actually see and experience what I'm reading.
Mm-hmm.
It's partially because of that I am as coherent and able as I am, I believe.
Mm-hmm. I would say that and a whole bunch of
Therapy. Yeah.
Yes. Yes, because that was kind of, oh my gosh, it was drilled into you, right?
Yeah.
Like it was an everyday occurrence. How do you feel about this? What emotion can you
take from this? Yeah.
Yes. What would you apply? How this emotion? What would you call this emotion?
Yeah.
As you feel this in your body, as you even if it's contentment that you were talking about.
Yeah.
What do you call that? How does that deeply? What's the emotion? But then how does it feel in your body?
Yeah.
And and then what do you do with it?
Yeah.
That was something that we had to tell you too. Is that because you don't get to just go hug people. You don't there's this spatial issue.
Right,
there's
yeah.
all of those things that you thought, well, if they applied here at home, they would apply out in public, and that it's life is weird.
Social mores are so weird.
They are super weird, super weird. Yeah, I agree with that. And so I thought that it was important to answer this question today about that experience that you had and how you shared that on the podcast last time, because it flew right past me.
Because you know me probably.
Well, and because last podcast was really hard.
That too.
It was really hard, and so I'm really grateful that our friend asked us about that. Asked us about that. Did I even say that right?
Originally, yes.
Okay, and then I butchered it.
You actually said it right the second time after you seemingly stuttered, trying to get it right again.
All right.
But, yeah.
All right. So, even today, how do you so you describe when you're reading a book how you can actually see the events happening in your mind. Well, do you ever do that when you're having regular conversations? So, for example, if you are going to move a couch down a hall that have some difficult maneuvering involved, do you picture that in your head before that happens, or not so much?
Like, do I picture how it's going to fit in a certain way going through different parts and stuff, or?
Yeah, so like if we were going to talk about that and we were going to say, and we were having a conversation, okay, how do you think we should get this down here? How do you think this is going to fit? as you're coming up with how it should be turned, which side should go first, should the back be up or down or sideways, and how to do this. When you're describing that, do you see that as you're describing it, or is that really limited to when you're reading books?
That's actually exactly what I do. Is whenever I'm trying to move stuff like that, it's how can I explain it? You know that little baby toy or whatever that has like the different shapes that you put through the slot that matches it? Like there's a triangle shape, there's a...
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, where you're having to... right, when little babies are learning that, the triangle goes into the whole shape like a triangle,
Yeah.
the circle goes into the shape of a circle, right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's much more complex, but it's like looking at the shape and then looking at the spaces that are available and seeing which one will work best. But on a much bigger scale, I guess.
Okay. So let me ask you something else, kind of random, because maybe that was kind of a specific question. When you're having a conversation with someone, and let's just say somebody comes into the library and asks you where something is. When you describe to them where it is, do you picture that in your mind? Do you picture walking to that area, moving to that area, or picture them going to that area?
No.
Okay.
With conversations, whenever it comes to conversations with other people, it's very difficult to try and do that, because whenever I do try and figure out, like with the furniture moving through that different spaces and stuff, with that I can pause, take a moment to think it through. But in a conversation, I don't have that luxury.
Okay, got it. So it's when you have ample time to just get through it, that's how you see it. But when you're having a conversation with other people, there's too many variables that are like moving parts.
Yes. And
it feels like it's moving faster.
It's not that it feels like it's moving faster. It's that with conversations, you can't pause for 10, 20 seconds.
Right. Hold on, let me visualize this.
Yeah.
You could say that, but...
But they look at you like you're, what? Are you crazy? Right. You work here.
Right.
Yeah. For that example, though, I know the sections where things are. And if I don't, I can tell them to there's either a computer where you can type in what you know, and it'll come up with different things, or you can go to the front desk.
So what I just realized is that I'm asking you about specific events.
Yes, you are.
And because I'm asking you about specific events, you're focusing on those specific events. And I think that was... a
mistake?
Yes.
Yes. All right, then let me try and clear this up. If it is a conversation, any conversation, I don't have that time to visualize things like that. On top of that, whenever I can visualize something like that, it's not for a conversation, because my mind has to be kind of in a certain gear or a set way of thinking.
Right, it's a different mode completely.
Yes.
Right. Okay, I got it. And then, so when you're not doing that, that's basically for yourself. That's that's that mode. That's when you have the opportunity to do that. Then, when you're having a conversation, then the words are the most important thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
With that said, instead of the feelings being the second most important, it's the emotions that are second most important. Still far away from the words for me, but I understand that a lot of times the words are born from the emotions in other people.
And words are very so you that's different because you had said initially it was words, feelings, and emotions.
Yes.
Explain to me because I missed that. Words always number one.
Yes.
Then you said feelings and emotions. What is different now that emotion is second and feelings are third?
Whenever it comes to conversations, actually.
So anybody that anytime anybody else is included.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
Because a lot of times, no, for example, sarcasm.
Mm-hmm.
Where does that come into play?
Mm-hmm.
I have difficulty with that because I focus on the words.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas it's my understanding that many other people recognize it right off the bat,
Mm-hmm.
for the most part at least, because people are very emotional beings.
Well, and also it makes it difficult is that sarcasm can be fun, but sarcasm can be draining and heavy. And if a person operates on, in sarcasm all the time,
Yeah, whenever they're not, it's difficult to tell.
It's just exhausting.
Yeah.
It can be. So, there's something else that you're dealing with too.
Yeah.
Is where is somebody coming from? So it can be very complicated.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the words themselves are complicated as well, because when we use the word Nana, that brings up in us certain experiences, and for us, it's a positive word. It's the name Nana.
Yeah.
That's assigned. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
But there's other people that have had mean nanas.
Yeah. I'm sorry for laughing. I'm, like you're saying, picturing our Nana, but trying to put it together with the word mean. It's like.
Well, yeah, and she was mean.
She could be. She could be.
Because she was super opinionated, and you always knew what she felt. But
she was. She was
loving.
Yes.
Very loving. And yes, and so you and I talk about Nana. We come from the same place because we understand what Nana means. We have that shared experience.
Yeah.
And talk to somebody else, and you say Nana. Well, you don't know what it could be entirely different, and so the term Nana to them means avoid at all costs, or
yeah,
not supportive.
Right. Right. Different things.
Exactly, and so that even makes it more complicated because words are your number one way of
identifier.
Yes.
Yeah, number one identifier.
Yes, exactly. And since words mean so many different things to so many different people, it's
yeah.
And we've already established by the time you get up every day, you're already focusing on patterns and and all of those things already. So to get to a point where now you're deciphering not only what the words mean, but then I get what you're saying is that to also include the emotions. You're already dealing with your feelings, your emotions, but dealing with somebody else's can feel overwhelming.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Is there anything else about words? About this topic, about the other day talking to Nana and what you took away from that?
Well, one thing I'd want to clarify and just make sure is said, even clearer if we haven't, is the difference between feelings and emotions. Because, I mean, I know I think we
Sure.
said it earlier, but emotions are not necessarily tangible. At least, usually, I guess. But feelings are things like your senses.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
So if I put my hand on you right now,
you'd feel my skin, the hair on my arm, something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you see me. That's
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily a feeling exactly, but it is.
But I know what you mean.
Yeah, it's a sense.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas emotions are emotions are very they're I guess the best way to explain what emotions are is in the sense of what they're not.
Okay.
Emotions may have physical side effects,
Mm-hmm.
like crying if you're happy or sad.
Mm-hmm.
But the emotions themselves are not tangible. They don't have physical representations of what they are.
Correct.
They have examples of them,
Mm-hmm.
like a smile, or like I said, tears.
Mm-hmm.
But there are no actual physical embodiments of these emotions.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So that's one of the reasons that it makes it very difficult, and it has been very difficult for me to understand them,
Mm-hmm.
because they're not tangible. They're very much
They're ideas of something.
yeah.
Yes. Right.
And so for someone such as myself to be able to grasp that, it's very difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And as we've said before, it took many, many years of therapy and training to understand these emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said before, at the very beginning of the podcast, I still have issues sometimes identifying what I'm feeling.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Right. And as far as understanding what other people are feeling, the best advice that I can give anybody that's living with somebody on the spectrum, or has a relationship with somebody on the spectrum, use your words to get to the emotion. So I would be doing both of us a disservice if I expected you to know when I was feeling upset with you, or if I was feeling sad, or whatever other emotion. It's not going to do either of us any good for me to get impatient or upset by you not recognizing that. The best thing that can happen is for me to say to you,
Hey, I'm feeling like this.
yes, to tell you what I'm feeling.
Because I'm not a mind reader.
Okay, we're done with this podcast. Yes, all right. I mean it. We're done. Okay. Well, I hope that helps. I hope that helps. That clarifies a lot. It does for me. I think that you were very eloquent in the way that you explained that.
Thanks.
Everybody, thank you so much for hanging out with us again, and I'm just thrilled to be back.
Yeah.
Doing the podcast again,
And hearing from people. Oh my gosh.
yes, love it.
It's always so great to hear from everyone.
Mm-hmm. Yep, it sure is. So, yes, please join us next week as well. And you check us out. I'm doing some new things to the website. I think that I'm somehow there's stuff with Twitter that I don't really go on Facebook so much. But I mean, I suppose I should. I guess I'll post it there again. But anyway, links to we're going to do some Instagram stuff.
Okay.
And yeah, just so people can see pictures and different things that we're doing.
Cool.
Anyway, so check us out. That website is sonyaking.com. It's SONYAKING, and please
.com.
.com. Please give us 5 stars if you like what we're doing, because since we were off for a while, I think it really affects the
availability that we're shown.
Right.
Yeah.
So we don't pop up the way that we do, and so the 5 stars is really going to help us out a lot.
Yeah.
So that would be great. And just again, so grateful for you and listening and your messages to us. They mean a lot. And let me just say thank you, everybody, for your kind words and well wishes for all of us in regards to losing Nana.
Thank you, everyone.
Yes, thank you. It means a lot. So be good to each other. I hope you're healthy and happy. And we will talk to you next week. Love you.
Bye.